these three guys. This is a division that it's like it really is Anthony Johnson, DC, and Gustafson. Any of these three guys, I mean, they're so impressive, right? I feel like any one of them could beat the other one any given Sunday. And then John Jones was just kind of out there. What a weird thing, man, that John Jones just kind of, I don't want to say mess up the opportunity, because who knows, he might come back and realize his full potential. He was so young. He's still very young. But, like, what a fucking weird thing that John Jones was just by far the best, and he's just MIA now.
Yeah, no, it is crazy. I mean, those three guys are certainly at the top of the division. If you look at Cormier's record, which I am now 18-1.
It's crazy.
Of course, the only loss coming to John Jones, and it was a good win for John Jones. Other than that, though, we've got to give some props to Daniel Cormier here. I mean, if you look at his record, let's go through Anderson Silva, Gustafson, Anthony Johnson, lost to John Jones, Dan Henderson, Patrick Cummins, Roy Nelson, Josh Barnett, Antonio Silva, Jeff Monson, because remember, of course,
heavyweight,
he fought at heavyweight. This guy's unbelievable, and he's wrestling second to none.
And he won the Strikeforce tournament as an alternate, if you remember that. The Strikeforce heavyweight tournament, he came in, and it was a dude that wasn't even really, he was known as like Cain Velasquez's wrestling coach, really.
Yeah, no, he really was. But it's kind of weird because this fight, of course, the light heavyweight title is on the line, but it's almost like the real prize for this fight is who gets to fight John Jones, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, John Jones is cleared to fight now, and the winner of this, of course, will go on to face John Jones in John Jones's much highly anticipated return, and that will obviously do big pay-per-view numbers. And John Jones, I mean, I'm not trying to piss on Daniel Cormier's reputation here, but it's a weird one for Daniel Cormier, because John Jones is still in some people's mind regarded as the champ, because he did beat Cormier, and John Jones was stripped. Now, of course, Cormier beat Johnson, became the champ, so he is the rightful champion, but I guess a lot of people still kind of think maybe that belt should be around John Jones's waist. So it's weird that Daniel Cormier, his entire legacy and reputation as a fighter is somewhat defined by John Jones. So it's unfortunate, but it's just a weird position he's in. He was so dominant at heavyweight, of course, the light heavyweight champion, and he's got this cloud hanging over him of John Jones. He needs to beat John Jones to be not credible, because he's far, he's more than credible. He's the light heavyweight champion of the world, but to truly be accepted by his critics as the light heavyweight champion, he needs to beat John Jones. But to be able to do that, he's got to beat Anthony Johnson. So there's some very interesting fights for Daniel Cormier, but it's a very, very tough road ahead.
Yeah, it's so funny because, I know you're boys with Daniel Cormier, but I got to be honest with you, I really, really want to see Anthony Johnson versus John Jones. So I'm rooting hard for Anthony Johnson in this fight. Not only am I rooting for him, I'm also picking him. Like I said, it's just kind of that any given Sunday factor. You look at these two guys, you're right. Daniel Cormier has never been knocked out. I can't actually sit here and go we don't have the data to say,
Dude, listen, I have sat next to Daniel Cormier many times during UFC Tonight. And by the way, I would love to fight Daniel Cormier. I would love to try and unify the two belts. Seems like everybody's doing that these days. So I'm not scared of him, but I'm telling you right now, that guy's going to be hard as hell to knock out. His head is like the laptop screen that I'm looking at right now, which is an Alienware laptop. It's going to be 20-odd inches wide. That's what DC's head is like. His head is massive. He's stocky as hell. I mean, he's not the tallest guy, but he's built like a tank, and if there's a body shape that is designed to take a good punch, it's Daniel Cormier. So, of course, anybody can be knocked out. The right punch delivered at the right time in the right location can knock anybody out. And, of course, DC can be knocked out. And if anyone's going to do it, it will be Anthony Johnson. But as I said before, we have seen DC take Rumble's best shot.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I'm being convinced right now, you son of a bitch. I'm listening to you talk about it, and I'm like, God damn it, I don't know if he's going to be able to do it. One loss ever to John Jones, and it was a close fight. It wasn't like John Jones came out and beasted him or came out and made him look like a fool. That was a close fight.
It was a close fight. John Jones definitely won it. John Jones definitely won the fight, and I think going to the scorecards, there was no question as to who was going to win the fight. But that was only because I gave not every round, but most rounds to John Jones. But the rounds were still close. You can win a round by a 10-9 round, and it still be a close round. So it was competitive. The fight was certainly competitive. Of course, John Jones was the first man to ever take Daniel Cormier down, and that was a big That was a big, what's the word I'm looking for? Ribbon in his bow for John Jones, and gave him a lot of confidence.
Notch in his belt, a much less girly way to put it.
There you go, a notch in his belt. That's what I was looking for. That's why you're around, Lewis. Yeah, that was a good notch in his belt, and he didn't do it once. He did it several times throughout the fight. So DC obviously wants that rematch. You're right. I would love to see John Jones versus Anthony Johnson, but I can't help but see John Jones going in with those beautiful, sharp, fast takedowns that he used to use at the start of his career. I mean, look at John Jones versus Chael Sonnen. Chael Sonnen was a great grappler and a wrestler in his own right. And Jones just took him down in a heartbeat against the fence, boom, put him on his back, took DC down, remember, and just elbowed the hell out of Chael Sonnen in no time at all. And I can't help but think that Jones would do that to Rumble as well.
He probably would, but here's the thing, right? We've already seen Jones versus Cormier. I don't get super excited about watching that again. All things considered, if they came in as this, they come into that fight, I'm picking John Jones against Cormier again. I'm not super excited. I'm not a huge fan of John Jones. I kind of want to see him lose. So Anthony Johnson, in my opinion, has this style to get it done for the same reason that I say, he can beat Cormier because of that any given Sunday factor. He could put you out at any time. He could, has that crazy knockout power. John Jones, he hasn't really faced that guy. I guess.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. And for one, you just said you're not really the biggest John Jones fan. Yeah. Well, shame on you. Shame on you, because John Jones is probably the greatest fighter to step foot in the octagon. And listen, he drives me crazy. I'll say that on his fucking Instagram and all this. Listen, I'm not a religious person. I'm not. If you are, God bless you and all the best to you and good for you. But respect my beliefs as well. I'm not a religious person, but he throws the religious thing, the Jesus thing, the God thing down your throats. He's singing on Instagram.
And it's also bullshit too. It's not. It's
also bullshit, and he's trying to come across as the good guy. But that's not why I look at John Jones. That's not why I go to his Instagram. That's not why I tune into his fights. I tune into his fights to watch him fight. And when you watch John Jones fight, you're seeing a thing of beauty. You're seeing a guy do things and be so creative that you don't see. You see a guy going forward and fighting people at their own game. I mean, when he fought Glover Teixeira, everybody said, Jones just needs to use his reach advantage. Stay away from Glover because Glover likes to fight on the inside. Fucking Jones went forward, pushed him up against the fence and fought him like he was fighting in a phone booth. Fought him at his own game and beat him at his own game. The closest fight Jones ever had to getting beat was against Gustafsson. And I know for a fact that Jones didn't even train for that fight, and it was still an amazing fight. Yeah. So,
but none of these guys have
saying you're not a fan.
Well,
I mean, listen, you don't have to like the person, but admire what you see in the octagon.
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't say that I don't admire what I see, and I do feel like as a fan, we come into this and we watch it. I'm not a sports guy. I'm not like this guy who I'm like, I didn't watch football or baseball or hockey, anything when I grew up. I literally was a fan of like the theatrics. I was a pro wrestling fan growing up. I was into music and heavy metal music. So when I came into the UFC, really as a fan, I came into it as like, oh shit, this is like real pro wrestling when I was a kid, So, to be honest with you, when I become a fan of somebody, obviously they have to be a great fighter. I'm not, sure. Nobody's a huge fan of a guy who's on the undercard and hasn't popped yet and realized his potential yet. Obviously, but it's the other things.
All right, fair enough, smart ass. Yeah. Continue.
But it's the truth. It's the other things that turn you into real hardcore fans, and it's undeniable that John Jones is an unbelievable fighter, but in a weird way, because I don't like his personality and I feel like he kind of comes off as a phony, it makes it very exciting to kind of watch him and kind of root for him to lose. You know what I'm saying? So it's not... I am a fan. It's this puzzle, and I want guys, somebody like Johnson, who I'm a huge fan of Anthony Johnson, I want him to figure out that puzzle, and I want him to put him out. I'm going to be on the edge of my seat the whole time watching him fight. And it's only because Jones is that good. If Jones wasn't that good, I wouldn't even give a shit.
But that's the whole thing about, being a star, or being somebody that people give a shit about. Like you just said, you're rooting for him to lose. You want to see him get beat. You want to see if a guy's going to go out there and beat him. And that equates money. That equates being a star. Now, of course, Jones has done. I mean, look at Conor McGregor, perfect example. Myself, to a certain extent.
Yes.
As long as you walk out there, and there's emotion. If people are cheering or they're booing, whatever it is, the last thing you want is to walk out there and people are doing a fucking polite golf clap. Yes. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, this guy. All right, cool. Oh yeah, well, best of luck.
And there's a lot of great fighters.
I want people to scream, "I hate you," or I want them to cheer. So he's doing something right, but I tell you, it is completely. By accident. I don't think he meant to run that lady over and get busted and get stripped of his belt and all that good stuff.
Imagine he did.
Pretty sure that wasn't part of his master plan, but if it was, the guy's a genius.
Right. Imagine he's like the ultimate troll. Like he's actually trying to hit pregnant women.
Exactly. He planned that with great precision.
But we saw a lot. We've seen a lot of great fighters that weren't that exciting, both in and out of the cage, but they kept on winning. And then eventually the UFC was like, dude, we can't keep promoting you. Jake Shields, Yushin Okami,
Benson Henderson.
Yeah, Benson Henderson. Who was it that lost against GSP? They made that documentary about John Fitch, who I really liked too.
Good one.
But these guys, they were just, they're almost like middle of the road. You're like, they keep on winning 10, 12, 13 wins in a row, and nobody really